When a relationship ends, the very first instinct most people have is to chase. To call, to text, to show up uninvited, to desperately try to fix what feels broken. And I get it. When your heart is in pieces, all you want is to grab onto the one person who once made it whole. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. The more you chase, the further you push them away. It's not because they don't matter, and it's not because the connection wasn't real. It's because human nature doesn't respond well to pressure. When someone feels cornered, they run. And when they run, you're left even more desperate, even more anxious, even more heartbroken than before. That's why the very first principle to getting an ex back is learning how to respect space. Space is not silence for the sake of punishment. It's not ignoring to play games. It's giving room for emotions to settle, for wounds to start healing, for perspective to return. Think about it. If you burn your hand on a stove, you don't press your palm against the flame again and again, hoping it'll feel better. You step back, you let the burn cool, and only then can you tend to it properly. Relationships are no different. Without space, neither you nor your ex can see things clearly. When you respect space, you communicate something powerful without saying a single word. You're not needy. You're not desperate. You're not trying to force something that isn't ready. Instead, you're showing self-control. You're showing strength, and that is attractive. Because what really draws people in isn't begging or pleading. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own worth, even when things aren't going their way. Now, I know this is hard. Your mind will fight you. Every fiber in your body will want to reach out, to check in, to remind them of what you had. But that urge comes from fear, not love. It comes from the fear of losing them forever. And here's the paradox. You actually increase the chances of losing them by not giving them the breathing room they need. Love suffocates when it's smothered, but when it's given space, it has the chance to breathe again, to reignite on its own. During this space, something interesting starts to happen. The absence creates contrast. Your ex gets to feel what life is like without you constantly in their orbit. And while at first that might feel like freedom for them, over time, it becomes reflection. They remember the good moments. They miss the little things you used to do. They start to wonder how you're doing without them. And curiosity is a powerful emotion. But none of that can happen if you're constantly in their face, reminding them of why they pulled away in the first place. Respecting space is not weakness. It's strategy. It's the discipline to hold back when your emotions are screaming at you to act. It's the patience to let time work in your favor instead of sabotaging yourself with impulsive moves. And it's the confidence to trust that if the bond was real, lips doesn't need to be forced. It just needs room to reemerge. So, instead of sending that third message when they haven't replied, instead of driving by their place just to see if their car is there, instead of convincing yourself that one more "I miss you" will change everything, stop, step back. Give both of you the chance to breathe. Because when you respect their space, you're not just giving them freedom, you're giving yourself freedom too. Freedom to think clearly, to regain your balance, and to prepare yourself for the possibility of reconnecting in a healthier, stronger way. It may feel counterintuitive, but space creates the very conditions for reconnection. Without it, there's no chance of rebuilding. With it, there's room for reflection, growth, and a renewed desire to come back together. And that's why the first principle is so critical. It sets the foundation for everything else that follows. Because before you can rebuild a bridge, you have to stop shaking the ground it stands on. So, respect the space. Don't fight it. Don't fear it. Embrace it. Because in that quiet distance lies your greatest chance to truly get them back. When you're in the middle of heartbreak, it's so easy to make everything about the other person. You think about where they are, what they're doing, who they might be talking to, and whether they've moved on. Your mind becomes consumed with them to the point that you forget about yourself. But if you want even the slightest chance of bringing someone back into your life, the second principle is this: you have to rebuild yourself first. Not later, not when they come around, but right now in the middle of the silence. Here's the reality. Nobody is drawn to someone who's falling apart, waiting by the phone, or drowning in self-pity. Attraction doesn't grow in desperation. It grows in strength, in confidence, in energy. And that's exactly what this season of space is giving you. A chance to become the strongest, most grounded version of yourself. If you sit around waiting for them to fix you, you'll only end up more broken. But if you use this time to rebuild, you turn what feels like a loss into an opportunity. Think about what drew your ex to you in the beginning. Was it your laughter, your drive, your confidence, your ability to light up a room? Somewhere along the way, some of that probably faded. Maybe life got stressful, maybe the relationship wore you down, maybe you stopped prioritizing yourself. That happens to all of us. But this is your moment to bring it back. to rediscover the parts of you that made you magnetic in the first place. Rebuilding yourself doesn't mean pretending like nothing hurts. It means taking ownership of your growth. Hit the gym, not to impress them, but to feel stronger in your own skin. Pick up that hobby you abandoned because the relationship consumed all your time. Start reading, learning, working on your goals. The point is to create momentum in your life that isn't dependent on them. Because here's the thing, when you're focused on becoming better, your energy shifts. People feel it. They sense that you're not stuck, you're moving forward. And that kind of energy is hard to ignore. Your ex may not say it out loud, but they notice. Even if you're not talking, even if they're not watching your every move, word gets around. Or maybe it's as simple as a photo they see or a change in the way you carry yourself when you run into each other. Those little shifts plant a seed in their mind. Wow, they're really doing well? Maybe I walked away too soon. But that can't happen if you're sitting still, waiting for them to validate your worth. Now, this rebuilding process is not just about appearances. It's about emotional strength. Because if they came back tomorrow and nothing about you had changed, you'd fall into the same patterns that broke the relationship before. You've got to learn how to control your emotions instead of being controlled by them. That means developing patience, building discipline, and finding happiness in your own life. When you're at peace with yourself, you stop putting pressure on them to be your only source of happiness. And that, ironically, makes them want to be around you more. And let's be real, this isn't just about getting them back, it's about you. Even if the relationship never comes together again, the work you do on yourself will never go to waste. You'll become stronger, more confident, more fulfilled, and more attractive not only to your ex, but to anyone who crosses your path. That's why this principle is so powerful. It takes the focus off what you can't control, their choices, and puts it on what you can control, your growth. So instead of obsessing over what they're thinking, redirect that energy. Pour it into your health, your passions, your friendships, your purpose. When you rebuild yourself, you're not just creating a better chance of reconciliation, you're creating a better life. And that's a win no matter what the outcome is. Rebuilding yourself is about proving to both them and yourself that you are more than this breakup. You are resilient, capable, and worthy of love. Not because they say so, but because you know so. And when you carry that kind of certainty, everything else has a way of falling into place. So don't wait for them to come back to feel alive again. Start now. Start today. Because when you rebuild yourself first, you give them a reason to look at you with fresh eyes. And you give yourself the strength to never settle for anything less than the love and respect you deserve. One of the biggest mistakes people make after a breakup is thinking that all they need to do is wait, maybe give some space, maybe work on themselves a little, and then everything will just fall back into place. But that's not how it works. Relationships don't end without a reason. Something broke down along the way, and unless you identify what that was and change the pattern, you're going to end up right back where you started, hurt, frustrated, and stuck in the same cycle. That's why the third principle is about breaking the old patterns that caused the relationship to fall apart in the first place. Think about it, every relationship as habits. Some are good, like the inside jokes, the way you used to encourage each other, the little traditions that made the connection special. But some habits were toxic. So maybe it was poor communication where you shut down instead of talking things through. Maybe it was taking each other for granted. Maybe it was constant arguments that went in circles and never led to resolution. Or maybe it was subtle things like ignoring their emotional needs, being too controlling, or losing yourself in the relationship. Whatever it was, those patterns added up and over time they created distance. The mistake most people make is thinking, if I can just get them back, everything will be fine. But the truth is, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You can't expect them to feel safe giving the relationship another chance if all they see is the same old behavior. Words alone won't do it. You can't just promise, I'll be different this time. You have to prove it through action. And that's where the real work comes in. Breaking old patterns requires brutal honesty. You've got to be willing to look in the mirror and admit where you went wrong. Not just what they did wrong, but what you contributed to the breakdown. Because it's easy to blame. It's easy to say, they didn't appreciate me, or they stopped trying. But relationships are never one-sided. Even if they carried more of the blame, you still played a part. And until you own that, you can't truly grow past it. Once you see the pattern, you can start making real changes. If communication was the problem, you've got to practice being open, calm, and solution-focused instead of defensive or avoidant. If neglect was the issue, you've got to start showing appreciation, not just when you're afraid of losing them, but as a natural part of who you are. If jealousy or insecurity drove them away, you've got to build yourself esteem so that you're not constantly questioning their loyalty. These aren't just tweaks, they're transformations in how you show up as a partner. And here's the key: don't just do this for them, do it for yourself. Because the healthier you become, the stronger all your relationships will be. The person you're working on right now isn't just someone who can win back an ex. It's someone who can sustain a deep, lasting, passionate relationship without falling back into the same destructive loops. When your ex sees you, they need to feel that something is different, that the old cycle they walked away from no longer has a grip on you, that you've grown, matured, and are capable of creating a new dynamic together. That's what gives them hope. It's because if they think coming back means repeating the same pain, they'll protect themselves by staying away. But if they sense change, not just in your words, but in your energy, your actions, your consistency, they'll begin to wonder if maybe this time could really be different. This principle matters because it separates those who truly grow from those who just want comfort. Comfort wants things back the way they were. Growth says, that version wasn't working. Let's build something better. That's the only way reconciliation lasts. Not by returning to the past, but by creating a future that doesn't repeat it. So don't just think about what you miss. Think about what you're willing to change. Don't just want them back. Want a better version of yourself and a healthier version of the relationship. Because when you break the old patterns, you're not just opening the door for them to come back, you're opening the door to a love that's stronger, deeper, and far more resilient than anything you had before. And that's the kind of love worth fighting for. When enough time has passed and the space has done its work, when you've begun to rebuild yourself and you've started breaking those old destructive patterns, the next principle becomes incredibly important: how you reconnect. This is the moment where most people make a critical mistake. They come back too heavy, too soon, and with too much pressure. They write long emotional messages, pour their heart out, beg for another chance, and expect the other person to just fall right back in. But what they don't realize is that this kind of energy usually pushes someone further away. If you want to reconnect with your ex, it has to be subtle, gentle, almost effortless. It's about planting seeds, not trying to bulldoze your way back into their life. Subtle reconnection works because it creates curiosity instead of pressure. You're not demanding anything from them. You're not trying to convince them. You're simply showing up in small, light ways that remind them of who you are without overwhelming them. Think of it like dipping your toe into the water instead of cannonballing straight into the pool. That little text that says, "Hey, saw something today that reminded me of you," is very different from a 4-paragraph essay about how much you miss them. The first one opens a door. The second one slams it shut. The reason subtlety matters so much is because your ex needs to feel free. If they feel like you're pressuring them, or like you're trying to manipulate them into giving you another chance, they'll instinctively resist. But if the contact feels light, natural, and pressure-free, they'll lean in. They'll respond because it feels good to respond, not because they feel guilty or cornered. And when you create that kind of safe space, they're more likely to open up and engage with you again. This doesn't mean you're playing games. It's not about being fake or manipulative. It's about pacing yourself. It's about understanding that rebuilding a connection takes time, and that trust has to be earned back gradually. Think of it like reigniting a fire. You don't dump gasoline on it. You start with a spark, then add kindling, and slowly it grows. Subtle reconnection is that spark. Maybe it starts with a short message, a casual check-in, or even just liking something on their social media after a long period of silence. If they respond positively, then you match their energy. If they're warm, you stay warm. If they're distant, you don't push. You give them space and let them come around at their own pace. What you're doing is creating a dance, not a chase. You're moving in step with them instead of trying to drag them along. And here's the powerful part: when you show this kind of patience, when you allow things to unfold naturally, it changes how they see you. They realize you're not desperate. They realize you respect their boundaries. They realize you've grown. And that growth is magnetic. It makes them curious. It makes them wonder what else is different about you. It makes them want to lean in and discover more. Subtle reconnection also gives you the chance to show, not just tell, that you've broken the old patterns. If communication was an issue before, now they see you listening more, speaking calmly, and being thoughtful with your words. If you were too controlling before, now they see you giving them space and letting them take the lead. These small interactions become proof of your growth. And over time, that proof carries more weight than any promises you could make. It's tempting to want to rush this part, especially when your heart is still longing for them. But patience is everything here. The goal isn't just to get them talking again. The goal is to slowly rebuild comfort, trust, and attraction. That only happens when the reconnection feels natural, not forced. So take it one step at a time. Focus on creating light, positive interactions that leave them smiling instead of stressed. Don't chase, don't push, don't overwhelm. Just reconnect in ways that spark curiosity and remind them of the best version of you. Because when you do that consistently, those little sparks can grow into something much bigger, a genuine opportunity to rebuild the relationship from a healthier foundation. At the end of the day, subtle reconnection about saying the perfect words or making the perfect move. It's about showing patience, respect, and confidence in who you are now. And when you can do that, you give your ex the space to choose you again, not out of guilt or pressure, but out of genuine desire. And that's the only kind of love that lasts. When you've given space, worked on yourself, broken old patterns, and started to reconnect in a light and natural way, the next principle becomes the heartbeat of everything moving forward. It's about showing consistent value. Not random, while grand gestures that look good on the surface but fade quickly. I'm talking about the steady, reliable energy you bring into the relationship every single day. Because consistency builds trust, and trust is the foundation of attraction. Most people make the mistake of thinking they need to do something huge to win their ex back. They write long letters, buy expensive gifts, plan dramatic surprises. But here's the truth. If the relationship ended because of broken trust, emotional neglect, or unhealthy patterns, no big gesture is going to fix that. It might impress them for a moment, but it won't sustain anything. What truly makes a difference is showing up with consistent value in the way you speak, the way you act, and the way you make them feel. Value doesn't mean trying to buy their affection. It doesn't mean being their servant or bending over backward for validation. Value means being the kind of person who adds to their life instead of taking from it. It's about being someone they feel good around, someone who brings peace instead of drama, someone who makes life lighter instead of heavier. And when you can consistently show that, you shift how they experience you. You become a source of positive energy they naturally want to be close to. Think about it this way. If you're trying to rebuild a broken house, you don't just slap on a new coat of paint and hope it holds. You reinforce the structure brick by brick with steady, reliable effort. That's how consistency works in relationships. Each time you follow through on your word, each time you handle a disagreement with calm instead of anger, each time you show appreciation without being asked, that's another brick added to the foundation. Over time, those little things add up to something solid, something real, something they can trust again, and trust is everything here. Your ex won't risk opening their heart again if they think it'll only lead to the same pain. They need to see, through your consistent actions, that this time is different, that you're not just saying the right things, you're living them. That you've grown not just in theory, but in practice. And that takes time, it takes discipline, but it also takes genuine intention. Consistency also means emotional steadiness. If you're calm one moment and needy the next, confident one day and insecure the next, they'll feel like they can't rely on you. But if your energy is steady, if you stay grounded no matter what, you create safety. And safety is one of the most attractive qualities in any relationship. Because when someone feels safe with you, emotionally and mentally, they're willing to invest in you again. This doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means owning your mistakes when they happen, making it right, and showing that your overall pattern is one of growth and reliability. Perfection is impossible, but consistency? That's a choice. It's the daily decision to show up as the best version of yourself, not just once in a while, but as a lifestyle. Here's the beautiful part. When you start showing consistent value, you don't just change how they see you, you change how you see yourself. You begin to feel proud of who you're becoming. You start to trust yourself more, and that self-trust radiates outward. It makes you more magnetic, more attractive, and more capable of creating the kind of relationship that lasts. So don't focus on what you can do once to impress them. Focus on what you can do every day to create a stable, uplifting presence in their life. Let your actions speak louder than your promises. Let your growth be undeniable. Because when they see that, when they feel it consistently over time, their resistance starts to fade. They stop wondering if they should come back and start realizing they want to. And that's the real power of consistency. It doesn't demand, it doesn't chase, it doesn't try to prove. It simply shows day after day that you are someone worth trusting, someone worth loving, and someone worth choosing all over again. One of the hardest things to do when you want someone back is to let go of desperation. It feels almost impossible because everything inside of you is screaming to hold on, to fight harder, to prove to them that you're the one. But here's the paradox. You don't get someone back by clinging to them. You don't win their heart by forcing the situation. You create the possibility of reconciliation by being willing to let it go if it's not meant to be. And that's why this principle is so critical. Desperation shows up in subtle ways. It's in the endless texts, the constant need for reassurance, the way you adjust your entire life to fit around theirs. It's in the apologizing over and over again, even when they haven't asked for it. It's in the begging for another chance, hoping that if you just say the right words, they'll change their mind. But what you don't realize in those moments is that desperation is not attractive. It's repelling. It signals to the other person that you don't believe in your own value, that you're willing to sacrifice your dignity just to keep them. And when you do that, you make it harder for them to feel respect, let alone love. Think about it this way: attraction is about freedom, not pressure. When someone feels free around you, they can choose to lean in. When they feel pressured, they instinctively pull away. Desperation is pressure. It smothers, it suffocates, it takes away the natural rhythm of connection. Letting go of desperation is about stepping back and saying, I want you, but I don't need you to be okay. That balance between desire and self-respect is where attraction lies. Now, this doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you act cold or indifferent. It means you stop making them the center of your universe. You stop putting their approval above your own peace of mind. You stop tying your worth to whether or not they choose you. Because the truth is, the more you value yourself, the more likely they are to value you too. People are drawn to those who know their own worth. They're drawn to someone who is confident enough to say, I love you, but I will be fine without you if I have to be. That kind of energy is magnetic. Letting go of desperation also means letting go of the outcome. You can do everything right, give space, rebuild yourself, break old patterns, reconnect subtly, show consistent value, and still they may not come back. And that has to be okay. Because your happiness cannot be dependent on another person's choices. The work you're doing isn't just about getting them back. It's about becoming someone who can thrive no matter what happens. When you live from that place, you stop needing their return to validate your growth. And ironically, that's when the chances of them coming back are highest. When you don't need it, when you're strong enough to walk away if it's not right. This principle is about emotional freedom. It's about reaching a point where you can love them deeply but not cling desperately. Where you can want them without losing yourself. Where you can offer a relationship without demanding one. That balance creates the healthiest foundation for love to grow again. So ask yourself, are you acting from a place of fear or from a place of strength? Fear is desperate, needy, impatient. Strength is calm, patient, and willing to walk away if respect isn't being honored. When you start living from that strength, everything shifts. The energy you bring into every interaction changes. You stop chasing and instead you become the kind of person they want to chase. And here's the truth. If the bond between you is real, letting go of desperation won't ruin your chances. It will only improve them. Because the only love worth having is love that's freely given, not love that's squeezed out under pressure. And the only way to receive that kind of love is to create space for it by letting go of neediness. So don't cling. Don't beg. Don't try to control what you can't. Stand tall, hold your ground, and trust in your value. Because when you release desperation, you create the possibility of love returning in its purest form, chosen, free, and stronger than it was before.